Prepping.
Pencey.
Who up prepping they Pencey?
Pencey prepping it right now.
Oh my God, is that true?
Yeah, it's so true.
It's really
actually.
true. Ladies and gentlemen, we are Emos for Breakfast. Thank you for joining us once again. And we are very lucky to be joined by the illustrious, beautiful, super duper handsome, very accomplished Neil Sabatino from Pencey Prep. Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Awesome. Right off the bat, we'd love to know, as a channel with I suppose the word in the name, what is your relationship to the word emo?
I knew this question was coming because I watched the previous episode. So in my band right before I was in Pencey Prep, it was like a hardcore punk band. My nickname in that band was actually Emo Maggot because I was like the only one in the band that wanted to make everything melodic and have like Cure sounding like melodies over hardcore punk music. So I was very emo from the 90s and then brought that into the Pencey Prep thing, which I feel like even the start of my band that I was doing for a while, Fairmont, was pretty emo at the beginning for a while. Like I was kind of doing like very similar like front bottoms-y kind of sounding acoustic-y folk stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like I relate well to emo. Not the makeup and the dress so much. I'm kind of a plain looking guy, but musically, I think I relate deeply to the emo.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. Would love to hear it. Were there like any bands around that time that you were pulling inspiration from? You said you're like leaning more melodic and things like that. Or do you like recall any influences from around that era?
Yeah, I think Sunny Day Real Estate was a pretty big influence like during that time period. And like right as I was joining Pencey Prep, like we were all like really into like At the Drive-In and Get Up Kids and Jimmy Eat World and Chris Carrabba, the Dashboard Confessional stuff, just like everything that was going on in that period. Like we were going to like shows like every week to see bands like Hot Rod Circuit and Koufax and like everything that was just going on in that time period. We were like at the shows and checking that out. And we were, think very early on. And when I got into Pencey Prep, we saw like Thursday play in like a garage with like 20 other people. And like, so it was definitely there for that era of emo. But I mean, even now, I just signed an emo band from Philadelphia called Afloat, and they totally take me back to like that whole era. So like I have a lot of bands on the label that are kind of, I would say, definitely emo influence, like really heavy emo influence. Like
nice.
There's one band who couple bands that really love the Algernon Codwelder sound, like that kind of like second wave or fourth wave emo sound, and have put out records and stuff like that. And they're like all from like the Asbury Park, New Jersey area. So there's a really good kind of like emo scene there. And it's
heck yeah. You know, shout out to all of those. I mean, there were so many bands that you mentioned.
You listed that.
I just want to say shout out to all of them. I mean, the Dashboard Confessional, Christopher Carrabba is like one of the most beastly writing people of all time. And thank you to Spider-Man 2 for putting a whole scene of kids onto Dashboard Confessional. We appreciate that. Vindicated's a great song. And now,
for our second question, we always ask this: do you prefer pancakes or waffles? I have to know.
A deep question.
I think I prefer waffles because we have a Belgian waffle maker at home, and I did have my oldest child, who's 13 now, for a really long time would only eat pancakes or waffles for breakfast, but preferred waffles. So waffles has become the preferred food in our home.
I love that.
Well put. I think that now puts waffles over pancakes in our power rankings. So thank you very much.
Is it now?
I think that at the time this will come out, it will be 1 to 2, something like that. I'll have to go back and look. It's been a doozy for sure.
I feel like if you look at it, waffles have that natural pocket to hold the syrup in, so
Right.
Yes,
No one's
exactly.
mentioned that yet.
Nobody's talked about that yet, but I think that's the best part about waffles. Like, truly. Oh my gosh.
We've had people get philosophical. What is a pancake?
Yeah, they were like, do waffles even exist? And it's like, oh, we're getting too deep here. Okay.
Yes.
I'm following along though. This is
Thank
great.
you, Kyle. All right. So we'd love to talk about your new graphic novel you just put out with Shaun Simon, literally yesterday at the time of recording.
Yes.
Said here, Open Caskets. It's a collection of vignettes following a group of strangers and misfits, all with their own host of issues. And you came with the merch.
Yeah.
We love to see it. There you go. I mean, who else would have it but you, I mean, that's amazing. We love it. So we see it's following this group of misfits and outcasts, all with their own hosts of issues, and they're come together. They're forced to attend these court-ordered meetings in order to stay out of jail, but also maybe to understand a bit more about each other.
Yeah.
So we would love to know what inspired you, Shaun, and Jack to put this all together.
So originally, Shaun had we were talking about art and comics, and he invited me to do a pinup for Paranoid Gardens, which was the book he was working on at the time with Gerard. And so I had done a bunch of pinup work for him, and he picked one and got it into issue 1. And we just kept talking. He said, hey, would you be interested in doing some super indie looking stuff? Because he kind of worked with more people who were kind of doing more that superhero Dark Horse looking style, and my stuff is definitely more cartoony than that. So he said, no, it fits really good with what I'm thinking. And we did one story, and then he goes, oh, how would you feel about, let's try another one? And we just kind of, I think, had a plan to do about 8 stories, and then by accident just kind of decided, what if we try to make them all kind of connect in a way? And then he sent off a random email. I don't know if you guys have read it, but there was like a weird puppet TV show that's part of the book. And he was talking about doing that as a totally separate thing. And we just decided to kind of incorporate it. And I don't know, it just came together like organically, like piece by piece. We just kept adding to it until we had the 100-page book. And we've been sitting on it for a little bit because we started another single issue comic, and then we're both doing things on our own. But we're just glad we kind of were trying to push it to a lot of people who have done stuff with Shaun before, but it kind of is a really different thing for the comic world. It's like an anthology, and it's weird, and it's very Charles Adams-ish and Tim Burton-ish. And so we just decided, instead of waiting forever, and let's just get it out there and see how it does, because we're already moved on to other stuff. And it's just really good to like hold an actual book in our hands finally.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reading it, it's the counselor's puppet shows, like the weird little stuff that he puts on for these groups of people. It's really interesting to hear that was originally going to be like its own thing before it got integrated into this. But I think that works really well for this sort of idiosyncratic group of people that you have going on, to have this very idiosyncratic sort of means of finding common ground and maybe learning things through this weird guy who's like making them attend these meetings and watching them talk to each other and making them look at these little puppet shows on the TV and things like that. It's really cool.
It definitely, I think Shaun's original idea was, what if we had a sketch comedy show, but it was like 9-box comic book pages.
Okay.
And then it just kind of spitballing back and forth between us through emails became what it is in the book, which is, I think, interesting.
No, I love it so far. I've been reading it like every day, and honestly, like the more I read it, just the better it gets. I love it. It's so good so far.
Heck yeah.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
I was planning on only talking music. I didn't know I was going to be be talking about the book.
No
worry. Well, we'd love to talk about it.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Thank
you. And we want to put it out there as well for as many people to see, because we think it's really good.
It is.
It's awesome.
And if you, I'm sure I'll get into later. Shaun and I were like at each other's throats by the end of Pencey Prep. So it's amazing that like we're such good friends now and like have been working together and collaborating for like the last year and a half, because
well, we can actually get into that right now.
That was our next question.
Sure. Yes, so go for it.
You and Shaun go way back, first collaborating with Pencey Prep over 25 years ago at this point. Then you went separate creative paths, with Shaun kind of focusing more on comics and you kind of fostering your own independent like record label, Mint 400. What was it like working together again, I guess? But like also like how different was it? Because you kind of worked with music first, but now you're working both on comics now. So I wonder how different that is, I guess you can say, like the...
It's really interesting because with Pencey Prep, when I first came into the band, Shaun had barely played an instrument, I think, at that time. I think that they just kind of wanted keyboards, found a keyboard under somebody's bed and said, Shaun, here, you play keyboards. And it was a lot of single note stuff, and he slowly picked up chords and stuff, and he got like significantly better in a really short amount of time. But it was a lot of usually me or Frank at first were writing a lot of the keyboard parts, and a lot of the keyboards on some of the earlier stuff written for the Heartbreak and Stereo record, just the keyboards follow the guitar line kind of.
Yeah.
And kind of like, I was a little older than all those guys. So when I first came into Pencey Prep, I was kind of like, like trying to take charge a little bit. And I'll get into like, we only were at each other's throats for a very short period of time, but we made up like very soon after, and like have started doing like new Pencey merch, like I think around like 2007, even though the band had been defunct for a while. And like then the re-release stuff came later on when we got all the rights back to the record and everything. But as far as doing comics with Shaun, it's kind of like the opposite situation. I had been mostly doing fine arts type stuff and was doing zines and weird art stuff, but was doing stuff more for gallery shows and really short form things. And I had tried to do my own comic, and it got a little bit convoluted and kind of needed just lessons on like how comics should just be set up from somebody, because I went to school for animation, and animation is really different than the way comics are. And Shaun gave me like so much input when we were doing this book that it just made me such a better comic book writer than before. So it was like kind of the roles were reversed, and he was like kind of the expert in that and taught me so much about kind of just making stuff flow better. And like in animation, you reuse a lot of the same backgrounds. You reuse, like, you kind of show small motion between shots. You don't show big motions. And kind of in comic book writing, it's way different. You're like showing like, this is shot one, and you can let the audience infer a whole bunch of stuff before you get to shot two. And I don't know, that was just like illuminating for me, and like made me kind of structure all my future stuff since then in a completely different way.
That's so interesting to I don't know, because it's funny how you said like the roles kind of like reversed almost. I think that's such an interesting dynamic between like the two of you. I love that, actually. You guys kind of, I can tell you guys bounce off each other creatively, and I think that's really nice to see.
Definitely. But I would say by the end of Pencey Prep, Shaun was really coming into like his own. He bought like a Moog and like was a master at like finding these amazing like one note melody type lines. Like one of the songs that we just put out on the 25th anniversary edition of Heartbreak and Stereo, called Heroin Slow, I think that has some of his very cool like Moog work towards the end of the song. And like I that's like the song that's getting the most streams right now also, I think, out of all of the Pencey Prep songs. So it's really cool that finally saw the light, even though I don't, maybe like lyrically and song structure wise, it's not our best, most strong song. That's why it didn't get on the record. But I think it showcases kind of where we were going at that time if we had stuck together. So
yeah, absolutely. You know, it's really fun to hear about that stuff as well. I mean, I was literally just going to say the same thing with like, it was very fun to hear that role reversal as well. And then also those key lines, we were listening to them again in preparation for this yesterday. And it's so interesting to hear like the different ethos going into it between like the first cuts and then the remaster. It was really, really fun.
I personally love it. I think it's great.
I do love it as well. I am also a piano player, just sidebar, and I thought that it was really fun. It reminded me weirdly a bit of like 21 Pilots, like Vessel era keyboard work on some of those songs, especially 19.
I think it was so 19 was just more because I'm a very limited piano player. I'm like a pecker. Like so like I wrote that piano part for Shaun to play, and that's why like that was one of the earlier songs. I think as he grew into his own more with and got more comfortable, he like kind of expanded on the way he would play stuff. I think most of the Moog stuff kind of was very like Rentals, Weezer, like that kind of style of melody was kind of what we were going for. And it worked for the music at the time. We just, it was weird because I was always fighting to go mellower and the band was kind of fighting to go heavier. And that's like, as soon as I wasn't playing with them anymore, like they did song, I think Attention Reader was the first thing that they put out after I had left. And you could really hear the difference from that song to like what we were working towards with Heartbreak and Stereo. But I mean, I was at a point where I just needed to do my own thing. I was a little older than those guys and they were, you know, they're still young and wanted to do like screamy, heavy type stuff, which is cool. I'm glad. I think we all kind of found ourselves after Pencey Prep and kind of all went our different ways, but found what we're, best at.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's nice to hear, and pardon the 21 Pilots comparison. I'm showing my age. I was born this morning. All right, we're ready to move on here. Speaking of Fair, I'd love to throw seamless transition. I'd love to give you a throwback here. I hope that it displays for you as well. What can you tell us about this image that we have right here?
So this was in the basement of Maxwell's, and this was my band Fairmont. So sadly, Andy, the guy who's sitting to my right with the beard, he passed away last year. He had played with me for almost from 2003 until like about 2016. He had a bunch of health problems and he couldn't play with the band anymore. Andy was like so super important to my musical development. Kevin was playing acoustic guitar with Fairmont. So Fairmont for a little bit had no bass player and was acoustic guitar, electric guitar, and drums. And we were touring all over the US, and it was a fun era. And I felt like it was a very, like, we sounded so similar to what the Front Bottoms ended up doing like 8 or 9 years after we were around. I guess we were just a little ahead of our time, but that was kind of the point in the band where I finally gave up on trying to be Pencey Prep 2 with my band and like stopped kind of doing heavier stuff. And it kind of worked really well for us to be like kind of like jangly guitar over acoustic guitar and drums for the couple records we did. We did this record Onemy, and it's probably my most emo sounding record, I would say.
Yeah, a little
Nice.
bit.
Probably contributed a lot to the longevity of Fairmont as well. I mean, whoa, hey guys, technical difficulties. We'll be right back. Oh, we're back.
Okay. Well then.
Don't worry, we have spies tapping in. What I was gonna say is that probably contributed a lot to the longevity of Fairmont. I mean, you guys have been active in one form or another now for over 2 decades since your formation as well. Is that true?
Yes. So COVID really put a damper on the band.
Surely.
As far as we used to practice every week. And like as a band, we'd like at a practice space, and that kind of like always kept us moving forward. And then once COVID came, it just was really difficult to get the band together. So the band ended up going from like a 5-piece band down to just me and Christian, who are like the main 2 guys. So Christian joined in 2008 on keyboards, and he would play bass with one keyboard, all the secondhand stuff with his other hand. And he was really a big part of like us actually making listenable music, I think. Like I feel like from 2008 on, like the records got much, much better. And that's not to take away anything from like any of the previous lineups. Like Hambone was in the band from Pencey Prep for a couple years also, right after 2003. I just think I never had somebody in the band though that was like a music major and somebody who could, really dissect our songs and like change time signatures and help us really kind of bring the songs to a whole new level. So once he joined in 2008, he's been in the band since, and after COVID, pretty much he lived down the street from me, so he'd come over and he'd record all the keyboards, record all the drums for a record. I would record everything else. His wife would do the backing vocals, and that was all Fairmont's been really for the last like 3 to 5 years of its existence. So we were putting out records that are getting really good radio play and sync licenses and everything, but it just couldn't go out and play a show. So we started another project called Please Be Careful, and that's kind of my main thing right now. That I've been focusing on musically. So it's an all instrumental thing, but we actually have 4 members and we get together and record a lot of live stuff, and we go out and play shows. And so that's my current musical project.
For our next question, when originally promoting your record label Mint 400, you said that you wanted to provide a way for the artist you signed to record as much as possible, and in your words, basically say screw all the other bullshit that has become the music industry. From your experience, what gripes do you have with the music industry, and how did that inspire Mint 400's like development, possibly?
So, I think I don't want to trash talk too many people for this, but
you don't have to name names.
No,
it's okay.
So let's just say I was on labels where they said, we put your music out. That's what we do. Don't ask us to do anything else. Then I was on labels that kind of wanted to act just like the bank. They were great labels, very supportive, but they just didn't have anything else to offer. They would say, here's $2,000, pay us back when you can, and then we can hand you more money to do the next thing. And that was a great way to work for a little while. But as I was touring and trying to grow the band, that wasn't becoming a great way to work. And we had sent stuff out to tons of record labels, and it was rejection after rejection. But we were also, it was weird because Fairmont was kind of mellow at the time when all of the New Jersey scene and all of everything, it seemed, was just a much heavier scene, and that stuff was getting recognized a lot quicker and a lot more. So we were going out of state more, and at some point I just finally decided I'm going to do this myself. We had already tried the manager route and playing hundreds of shows, playing more quality shows, touring, not playing our area at all, and just tried everything we could think of. And then just doing our own record label, I think it was like 2007, I was able to get the rights back for everything that I had done and just put it under one umbrella. And as soon as I did that for myself, every single band that I knew was asking, hey, can we kind of be part of that too? And like Mint 400 was something I just made up when we would send out like booking emails, and we're on Mint 400 records and we're touring through your area. And then eventually it just became a real thing. And it took a little while to get rolling. Probably by 2009, I was actively like approaching bands and signing them. And at first it was just distribution. And then eventually we added in radio, and then later got a sync licensing deal, and like just slowly grew it over the years. I mean, with the distro, it was just, we were doing distribution with like a really small distro, and then it got bought out by a bigger company, and then that company got bought out by Sony, and now we're part of, the Orchard and Sony, which just was lucky breaks from being around so long and being at Spotify from when that first started, and iTunes when that first started, and just all that stuff kind of helped us like grow in the right direction. And it's kind of just a different philosophy though than other labels. So because we're not putting out physical records, we're not sitting around waiting for the money for bands to sell their record, hand us the money back so then we can give them more money, which that was the issue I ran into when I was on some of the smaller labels we were on. Like, it was just a bank loan. And so once the digital age kind of firmly took hold, it was easier to start something with no capital and to kind of get it going in a way where we could work with like a ton of bands and just basically at first just be advice for, we tried this, it really sucked and didn't work out for us. Don't waste your money on it. Like that's basically what the label was at first. And then it just kind of has grown into like every facet of the industry that we could help bands with, like with press and booking and different things, and just kind of just help them cut corners and move ahead a little quicker. And like we had bands coming to us that would record a whole record in my basement, at my basement studio. And then, so I would produce, mix, master, engineer their records, do their album art for them, help them get a cheap CD pressing if they wanted CDs, book a bunch of shows, do a radio campaign and distribution. And for smaller bands that we were working with at the time, that was like the max of what they needed, because they weren't bands that were full-time touring. And it just kind of has ramped up ever since then, from like 2015 till about now. So I think
nice.
I think that it, like, because we're not waiting on bands to give us back money for the physical, they can put out stuff a lot quicker if they're just doing small pressings and selling kind of what they can sell at a clip, instead of getting these gigantic pressings at a discount through us that they'd have to pay back over the course of like 2 or 3 years before we could do the next thing. That's why we have bands like putting out stuff sometimes like every year, and we can work with, you know, sometimes like a 50 band roster all at once. And we pretty much put out consistently something every week of the year, and send something to radio every week. So usually anywhere between like 50 and 80 releases has been consistently what we've been able to do since like about 2019 or something like that.
I mean, it's hard for us here to wrap our minds around it. Has it been hard for you to wrap your mind around that? I mean, that's
that sounds like a lot.
Mind-boggling amount of work.
It's, I think it just is because it's slowly ramped up from that. It didn't just happen at once.
Okay.
And because it ramped up from that, there's only so much that I can do for each band. It goes through the machine of what we can do. And for like, we are still a small label, so we're like a stepping stone for some bands. And, you know, they put out their 2 records with us. We do what we can do for those 2 records. And then, you know, they can move on after that, or we can help them move on, like get to the next step, bigger label. Or there's some bands that, you know, they try to move on to like the big time and whatever, and it just doesn't work out because they realize they want to have a family and work day jobs and that kind of stuff. And we're a good home for those kind of bands too. So like we've had all kinds beyond the label, bands that are real go-getters that are going to tour full time for the rest of forever. And, you know, we help them get label deals, or they got their own secondary label deals after they did their 2 releases with us, which is usually about what we do with each artist, is like a minimum 2 record kind of deal.
Okay.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah. You know, shout out to all of those bands as well. You know, I was scrolling through all of them when we were looking through the record label, and it was super fun to see. And if you are indie artist, tap into Mint 400, please. They'll get you. They'll do, in Neil Sabatino's words, what they can. They'll do a lot, I'm sure. And they'll definitely help you prep. And speaking of, again, seamless transition, we would love to know here, just to throw you back again, what you can tell us about this image right here, dated, I believe, 2001.
Yeah, that's my so the phone number at the bottom, that is my original room, you know, my phone number in my bedroom at home, and
wow,
my parents' house. And then the other number, the beeper number, was Frank's. And so Black Ball Music was actually, Frank's dad was working for that company, and we were thinking we were going to do everything through them, and we were sending them demos, and they're just kind of slow on getting back to us about stuff. And we just ended up doing the first demo by ourselves, and then we pitched it and luckily got signed right away. That picture was taken at the Wayne Firehouse by my wife. And we had just played with Not a Surf and Adam and His Package at that show, which was a very awesome show.
Nice.
Okay.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, and hey, when you're local, you know, you rep yourself, and it makes me laugh so much. Thinking back to what you said as well about like how your record label sort of started as just a way to promo your own things, and it became a big thing. You know, sometimes you hear the expression like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally put it on just to like have some prestige, and you were like, let's make it. And you made it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the way most things go for me. I mean, originally with the book too, me and Shaun were thinking originally that, you know, somebody from his past was going to definitely jump on it right away. And instead of waiting around though for, you know, like people hemming and hawing, we just wanted to get it out. So we started our own publisher, you know, like just to get it out there. And I think it's cool what we did in a short amount of time. Shaun even said, I think you're doing more for the book than some of the people I've worked with that are in the big industry, part of the comic industry. So it's just, I don't know. Do you ever hear, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Sometimes that's true.
Yeah.
I'm dying by that mantra. We are all dying by this mantra.
Exactly.
But it's very true.
What song did you have the most fun working with during Pencey? Like, was there any song that you were specifically like you had a lot of fun performing or just like working on in general?
I loved working on all of that stuff. I think when I first came into the band, they brought in, the songs were kind of simple, so they were very like moldable that we could add all these other parts. And I remember how fun it was taking like, I think 10 Rings was like the first one that I wrote like the musical component of for the band. And like, it was cool how we kind of blended it into Secret Goldfish and like just had those super extended endings. And then like by the time we started, like I had written kind of the musical component for 19 and Trying to Escape the Inevitable. And like, I think those songs were just, it was like so much fun to like finally write songs that the band was actually going to put into their set, and everybody kind of contributed then their piece to. Cause I had always, I was, my very first band, I kind of wrote everything and it was garbage. And then I got into a real band and my first real band though, I wasn't really allowed to contribute much to. Like I would contribute like a little piece here or there. And so Pencey Prep was kind of like nice that it was like my first time being able to kind of create these, the musical underneath piece of a song and have everybody then contribute to it and then hear it kind of come to life. I think 19 was kind of like a special one for me because I wrote most of the lyrics for that, like just in a journal. And then Frank kind of like picked out what he liked from that and then added it to his. And like that was probably the one I liked the most out of like that era of stuff.
That's really funny because I think 19 is probably my favorite song off that album. I think also maybe Trying to Escape the Inevitable and Yesterday are like the top 3 songs for me on that album.
Yesterday started, I think, from Frank's previous band, Sector 12.
Sector 12.
But when I first got to the band, it was just like a 2-chord, like power chord thing, which is kind of cool how we expanded and added the keyboards and added the melodies that later kind of made it more exciting. That was definitely a fun part of the process of working with them. Like I feel like every song was all 5 of us like kind of fighting over intricacies of the song, but they didn't end up sounding like too many cooks in the kitchen, which some of other bands that I've been in, if everybody's kind of putting in their own piece, it does end up sounding like that. And Pencey, it was kind of cool that nobody like both Frank and I and John just kind of knew where to pull back and where to be more busy. And it was just like an interesting mix. And I think Shaun at first was really hesitant to jump into a bunch of parts, but then later kind of realized where, he would come in for a chorus with a really cool like melody line or something like that, and it would really pull the song together. And Tim too. Tim kind of gave this. It was interesting because Tim was like a metal drummer, and then like we were making him play like pop sometimes and like indie rock, and so it was like a metal drummer's interpretation of those things, which kind of made it interesting all on its own as well. I think it kind of some of it has like a Pixies feel because of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
I can definitely.
It's always fun to see how those different tastes and influences end up. I mean, not even just band by band, but also member by member. I guess maybe that's just the art of creativity. It's fun to see how you can have people who have such different growing ups and childhoods and pull from different places come together to make something that's, I will say in the most loving fashion, weird in a really cool way, and I think that some of the best art spawns from that strange smashing together of different influences and creativities that inspires really cool stuff. And we would love to know, on a completely uncool, super silly level, if there are any memories or band stories that you have fondly from your time with Pencey Prep.
I have a lot of stories from Pencey Prep, but so right now I'm actually in my in-laws' house in Fairmont, Minnesota. That was that was kind of the beginning of the end when Pencey Prep stayed in this house. We were on tour.
Yeah.
We had been out for a couple weeks, and our van had broken down like in every state. And so one of the shows we actually had to cancel because the van broke down and we were stuck in my in-laws' house, and we gave like a concert in the living room to my mother-in-law. But I just remember it was one of the first times I was meeting my in-laws, you know, when I was first dating my wife.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because the guys they were teenagers. They were like 19 and I was like 23, 24. And like, they were just doing whatever they could to embarrass me. And I was just like, oh God, you guys really have to. So I do remember Shaun was so funny because he would be he just did not care. So he was like probably the most punky out of any of us. And so my mother-in-law goes, okay, well, I made hot beef for you guys in the crock pot. And Shaun for like an hour just under his breath was walking around going, hot beef, hot beef. And I was just like, Shaun, please, can you? Like, it was just, it was definitely adding to my anxiety because I was like, you know, meeting my in-laws for the first time, but those guys were having a great time. Well, it was really their first time away from home, all of them. So like, they were like just ready to, you know, party and do whatever. So, I mean, I think my in-laws ended up putting them in their like pool house. Like, so they had a little pool house, like where they kept like rafts, and that's where they ended up sleeping for the night.
Oh my God.
A little cage, if you will.
Just like, you can stay over there.
It was fun though. That first tour though was it was interesting. I think that we all had, like, we had the fun part of tour was just being away from home, but it was really like grating with like the van breaking down, and just not all of us were like broke and like trying to get that stuff like figured out and get to all the shows. But I mean, we made it home as a band, and then I think it was like a week later that me and Shaun just were like
fighting,
like still like carryover from tour, and it just kind of, I mean, but it was at a time when I was writing a bunch of songs, and I kept bringing them to the band. They were like, nah, I don't think so. Nah, I don't think so. You know, and they were like much mellower. So I think it was just, that was the natural time for me to go away and for them to kind of do what they were wanting to do musically anyway. So, but it was fun. Like that, the first night of that tour was, we played with Thursday at this tiny club called Loop Lounge. It's like probably 100-person club, 100-person room or less. And that was like that was probably our, like, that whole tour, everybody just loved the performances. And that was like us at like our height of like, we just had the set really tight. There was like, even, I think there was one song that like was like our newest song that never got recorded that like people were just blown away by. I think people from MTV and Rolling Stone were at the Loop Lounge show and just were like, oh, you know, get us the info on this band to the label at the time. And like, it was really good. But then when you get out on the road and you're playing in front of like 3 people who don't care about your set, it really bothered some of the guys like a lot to have like that level of complacency. I know we played a bar show that we got last minute, and some drunk guy yelled, "Get off the stage!" And we're just like,
oh my God.
Like, I remember Tim was just like, "What the fuck?" Like, like he's like, "I think we should pack up." And I was like, "No, we got to play if we want to get the money that we're being offered for this show." So like that kind of like started some of the fighting. We played maybe like a couple shows, maybe 3 out of 10 were decent. So that was also contributor to everybody being on each other's nerves at that point.
For sure.
That makes sense, yeah.
The van's breaking down a lot probably didn't help. I'm trying to remember the names that I saw. I was in the lead up to this. We were looking at not an interview, actually, a podcast. It was the one that I believe it was Frank, John, and
Shaun.
Shaun did. Yes. Shout out to, I want to say Lawrence Arms was one of the vans, and then also Dan Parks.
Dan Parks, I think, was the other one.
I think that
I'm not sure where the first Pencey Prep van came from.
The very first Pencey Prep van was like a gigantic yellow thing, and they called it something related to piss, like either Golden Shower or something like that. I can't remember, but that I don't know how much longer that van lasted, but then I think I want to say that he might have given that to my chem or something like that at one point. I'm not sure.
Yes, there were some van splitting situations going on from what we read. Something like that.
Yeah, it was the Dan Park van that they kind of shared with my chem, I think. Which actually was where we were going to ask, did you ever witness like Sweet Chubby, the little sausage link thing that they found in one of their vans?
I did not. So I'm trying to, the next time I saw Frank after Pencey Prep was probably like a year later, and year or two later, and my chem had I don't think they were on a major label yet. They were just having good luck, though. People were talking about them, and I became friends with Hambone again and Shaun, and like we all had talked, and I like that was when I think like it was around 2003. The guy, so my chem would go over to John's house for like Thanksgiving or something like that, and John invited me, and then I became close with John again. He joined Fairmont for a couple years, and like that's kind of when I was like a little bit back in the picture, and my chem invited us to something like backstage once they were a little bit bigger. I forget what record. I think it was like 2007, so it might have been like right before the Black Parade or around the time of the Black Parade.
Right after, because Black Parade came out, I think, in 2006.
So we got to see them while Fairmont was on tour. They invited us to come see them up in like Lowell, Massachusetts or something. So I like really only those. I actually Fairmont opened for my chem at Loop Lounge, also that tiny bar, and somebody was sick. I think the drummer was sick that night though, so they played acoustic, and it was at like 2 a.m. It was really interesting. But that was when I had talked to Hambone and John talked him into joining Fairmont to play bass for us. And
I'm someone personally who really likes to just surround myself with the stuff I'm working on, and I think that there's nothing more freeing when you're, especially, you know, and I'm sure maybe you get part of this as like a musician, is like there's something a little freeing about being able to kind of just take the world around you and swallow it out and just focus on what you're working on right now. I don't know if that's part of the impulse, but for me, that's something gratifying that I get from just making myself a busybody, you know?
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like with comics more because it's like just you doing the thing, and you're like with a band, can only kind of do it when the band is around, and with you with comics, it could kind of fill like any dead space, you know, like in your day, like you can go back to working on that stuff. I mean, it's good to have a bunch of outlets also for me. Like I like being able to like sometimes do the business side of music, sometimes do the creative side of music, sometimes being able to do the creative side of art or the business side of art and jump around. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. It helps a lot, I'm sure, for like when you just want to, you know, because if you're done with one thing creatively, you can move on to another thing creatively, and it's very fluid. Until there's just, I guess, you know, those days where you just want to lay down and watch TV.
Yeah.
Those are cool too.
I try to give myself a little phone time at the end of the day, like to scroll through TikTok and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for me, I feel though, like sometimes like I get very into music and I'll write a whole record. And then once that record's done, I don't want to touch like my instrument for a little bit. Like I don't want to sit down and write again for a while, because I feel like I put it all into that. And then the same thing with writing stories and doing artwork. I feel like once I've done like a 24-page book or whatever, you know, like I need a little bit of break from that, which was nice about the working on the book with Shaun. He would write one thing at a time and send it to me page by page. And it was like a little more of a break in the process, because I would send them the penciled page, he'd approve it, then I'd go through and ink it. And then wait for the next page to come. And so I had a little bit of a break. Now that I'm working on some stuff by myself, then it's a little more of a grind, because it's like, all right, I finished the 24 pencil pages. Now I got to go do an ink 24 pages, and then I got to add all the text to 24 pages. And then it's like, it's a little more like a regimented factory type job when you're doing it like that.
So. Yeah, on your own. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. But that help, I'm sure, makes a huge difference. And on that note, we'd love to say thank you so much for coming on. If there's anything for us that you'd like to share, future projects, things you're looking forward to, by all means.
Right now, mint400records.com. That's everything that I'm working on with the label. Please Be Careful is my current band that has a couple records out. This year we did a studio release and a live record, and it's all instrumental. Has some emo-ish stuff, some like heavier sounds to it than some of the Fairmont stuff. Fairmont has 25 years worth of records, and one from, I think we did one each of the last 3 years. And the book, that's my big thing we're pushing this week. Please, if you can afford it, it's on Amazon for the soft cover, $7.99. We made it as cheap as possible. If you can't afford that, it's on Global Comics app, and that is totally free.
Amazing. Yes. You guys at home, please check it out. We've taken a look at it. It's so fantastic. So far, we love what we've seen.
Thank you.
And that's it for us here at Emos for Breakfast. Thank you so much, Neil. And for viewers at home, we will see you soon.
Bye.